Hi everyone, this is Danielle again. Today I am going to be talking with Carla Salcido. She is a clinical dietitian who works for UC San Diego Health. She's been in this position for 3 years now, but she's been working within the clinical nutrition field for the last 10 years. Hi Carla, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
All right, so my first question that I ask all of our professionals is, why did you enter this particular profession?
So initially, I was always in between med school and culinary arts. I loved food, but I also loved science. And in the beginning, I did pursue just going for the medical route. But then I took a nutrition class, and that opened my eyes to this other field where it merged both of my passions together. So after that, I decided to apply to San Diego State, got accepted, and then started my nutrition journey.
So what were the steps? You talked about education being one step, but what were all of the steps that were necessary in order to become a registered dietitian? And additionally, a follow-up question would be, what would be recommendations that you have for students that are considering applying to dietetic internships in the future? What would be things for them to stand out in their applications?
Yeah, so I did my undergrad in nutrition. I graduated in 2012. After that, I knew I wasn't ready to get an internship because that's the next step to becoming a dietitian. So I made sure to get a ton of experience. I worked at Scripps Green as a diet clerk. I did a nutrition education internship at Women, Infants, and Children. I worked with a chocolatier helping out with recipe development, making their nutrition facts table. So that way I had a little bit of experience in the majority of the nutrition field. So research was the only one that I didn't do, but I did community through WIC. I did food service as a server, and then with the chocolatier, and then the clinical as a diet clerk. So I applied for my first round of dietetic internship matching, didn't get matched, but I knew this was a stepping stone to my next step. So I made sure to get a lot more experience and get a little bit more prepared for the next round. So I made sure I applied, I passed my DTR exam, or a dietetic technician registered exam, and that's a national exam that you can take. I passed it, and I applied for a position at UCSD, or UC San Diego Health now, as a diet tech registered. So I got accepted with that position. I got in at UCSD, made sure to build those clinical skills, because you're basically the dietitian for moderate to low risk patients. But you are becoming so familiar with just like the clinical setting, going into a patient's room, asking the questions, getting your interview skills down, because everyone starts without knowing anything. I think we all forget, we all feel overwhelmed whenever we're first in school, and we see these amazing professionals, but we have to keep in mind that everyone starts from 0%. So don't get discouraged. If anything, get more experience that will make you feel more prepared for whatever you do, if it's either the RD route or whatever field you're pursuing. So after that, I applied again for my other matching, did get matched at UCSD, which I can say I got really lucky because I was the first diet tech that had applied that got accepted. A few others had applied but didn't get accepted. So it's one of the lucky ones. But again, getting as much experience as possible, I think, is key to stand out. And like that diet tech registered really helped out, because you just build upon the skills instead of you're starting from zero, you're barely going into a patient's room, seeing them half naked, or maybe some smells that are not the most pleasant, but you just build up on, okay, I have my interview skills down, now I need to focus on intubated patients, or like severe trauma patients, parenteral nutrition or enteral nutrition. So just made things a little bit easier. And once I was in my internship, I realized that everything had helped me in my, like all my past experiences helped me in my internship. And without all of those experiences, I think I would have struggled a lot. So I was like so grateful that I didn't get matched. And having said that, I feel like just trust your timing because we sometimes feel so frustrated when we don't get what we want or the opportunities, but everything will work itself out. Because if I had gotten in, like, if I had gotten in my first match, I wouldn't have probably stayed at UCSD. I wouldn't have had an amazing experience. So always keep that in mind, even if it's frustrating sometimes, just trust the process.
Yeah, and it might be the other paths too, just because for me, I also, applied, as didn't get in, and just my route was I decided to just get my master's then and then see whether or not I wanted to still pursue dietetics. And then I ended up deciding, maybe I want to be doing something else, and I've been really happy doing health education. So that might be your experience too. You might decide that you want to go a different route. Now, Carla, talking about the matching process, some of our students might not understand what you mean by that. Can you briefly explain what that means?
Yeah, so we have, like, you can apply twice, but usually, like, the bigger programs, you only apply once a year, and then the rest are distance. So there's a 50% match rate, so it's very competitive. Being on the board, UCSD's board of directors, internship directors, I see the application. Everyone has 4.0. Everyone has tons of experience, work, volunteer, but it just comes down to little things that either the interview or something that might disqualify you. So it's really, really competitive. But once you get into that internship, you do a supervised practice hours. You do 1,400 hours, I believe, and then you are able to sit for, like, a board exam to become a dietitian.
Okay. So yeah, just so you know, as students, those are things for you to look forward to in the future and to definitely prepare yourself for. Now, Carla, another question I have for you is, obviously you went down the clinical route. Why did you choose clinical over, say, community or research or food service?
Okay, so this next part is really interesting, and it's, I think, like, a good learning lesson in terms of, like, you never know what's going to happen, and, like, things change in life, and one changes throughout your life, your goals, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. So I always knew I wanted clinical. The more critical care, the better, because that's what I wanted. I was going into that medical field, right? So I graduated, I get a job as a per diem at UCSD. I start clinical, 40 hours a week, so happy, but then a year goes by and it's like, is this it? Like, is that it? But I was like, no, I'm barely starting. Like, it's probably because I'm tired. But because of budget cuts, the first ones, obviously, to get the budget cuts that are affected are the per diems, right? We get paid the most. So my boss was like, okay, well, I can't offer you inpatient anymore or being in the hospital, but you can do outpatient. I'm like, no, I don't want outpatient. That's not for me. I don't like interactions with the patients. And he's like, well, it's this or nothing. And GI specialty. I'm like, that's, like, the one thing that I said during my internship I would never do. Well, guess what, guys? Never say never, because now I'm the GI expert. My other specialty is high-risk diabetes, pregnant women, so type 1, type 2 diabetics, and then gestational diabetics. So that I got because I speak Spanish. By default, I got it. And at first I was so mad that I had gotten that clinic. It's like, it wasn't challenging, but now I love it. I can't see myself elsewhere. And my schedule is varied. So I do a little bit of everything. So within one day, I'm in 2 clinics. Sounds hectic, but it's not that hectic. So Mondays, I do the high-risk diabetes OB clinic, and then the other half, I'll be in the hospital. Then Tuesdays, I teach a 2-hour class session to my older diabetic patients, and then I do one-on-one counseling. Wednesdays, I do outpatient GI mostly, so people with irritable bowel syndrome, celiac disease, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And Thursdays, same thing, a little bit of outpatient in the morning, and then my high-risk diabetes OB, and then Fridays, usually I help out the dietetic internship director and whatever she needs. So I think it's just being flexible, never say never, because you always learn from different projects. And if someone would have told me what I would be doing now, whenever I first started, I would be like, no way, like, there's no way I'm doing outpatient. But at the same time now, I don't see myself anywhere else. So I love doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it sounds like this opportunity is really giving you the chance to wear different hats and to expose yourself to different avenues within dietetics, which is wonderful. And I'm sure not everyone gets that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think I got the majority of these little projects or different types of hats because I'm always like, do you want to do this? Yes. So every year we do a nutrition-focused physical exam conference. I'm usually more behind the scenes. So I, without having any knowledge of graphic design, made the flyers. I made sure that we got an app that was free that participants could use. And that's not part of my scope of, like, I don't do that. I don't do that for a living, but you just make it work. So you just make yourself be a valuable team member. And as always, you're not going to go into any job being like, okay, you're doing everything wrong. It's like, no, make sure to learn on the job, see what works, what doesn't. And then once you build that rapport with your team members, then you can say, hey guys, I noticed that we could easily do this instead to make this more efficient. But today I found out I'm presenting now next Friday, so I need to get ready for that. I mean, I know the what I'm presenting, but still, like, you just have to adapt and just be open to anything that comes your way. Because if your manager or someone else is always like, no, well, every time that I ask this person, it's a no, then they're probably not going to consider you in anything. So I think it's just saying yes. Everything that you do, you'll learn and that you can take to another job. So it's just going to build your experiences where you can navigate and move through many settings versus only, let's say, if I had only been in clinical, then my resume wouldn't be as varied as I have it now.
Yeah. So what was one thing, which I feel like you've already kind of answered this, but maybe one specific thing that you had to learn on the job that school definitely did not prepare you for?
Yeah, so I think with the, like, just the clinical setting, they teach you a patient with only maybe one disease, and then you see real life patients and they have like 10 different diseases. You don't have the perfect patient, you don't have the perfect sessions. Every session is completely different depending on the patient. I think one big takeaway, just adapt, just go with it. We'll all have our bad days, good days. But I feel like always trying to learn, always be open to anything that comes your way.
All right. Now you've given a lot of great advice already, but to end our discussion, what is one more thing that you would like to tell any of our students who are interested or who are definitely pursuing the career of within dietetics?
So for sure, being adaptable is the biggest one, especially during the internship where you'll have different preceptors, different styles. So don't compare them because everyone will have their own patient population. I think that's one big one. Take notes, even if you're not a note taker. For the preceptor, it seems that like you are interested in their rotation, even if it might not be your like favorite rotation. But like for me, like I never thought I would be doing GI, but I had something to refer to later on. Another thing would be to have an unbiased perspective, an unbiased opinion of patients, and never assume things that just because they're seeing you for weight loss, it means that they are following like the worst diet, because sometimes they're eating really well, they're exercising, they're putting in the work, but they're still not seeing the results, and that's what our job is. So yeah, just keep a good attitude and keep learning, because we'll never stop learning in this profession.
Absolutely. All right, Carla. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me today. For everyone else, thank you as well for watching this video conversation as we spoke with a clinical dietitian today. I will see you guys again soon. Take care, and until next time, bye.